All right, today we're going to dig into a mystery that was literally buried for thousands of years. And this isn't just any mystery. This is something that completely flips the script on everything we thought we knew about how human civilization even got started.
Okay, so picture this. You're standing on a quiet, sun-baked hill somewhere in southeastern Turkey. It's, pretty unassuming. Just a dry, quiet piece of land. And for millennia, that's all anybody thought it was.
But right under your feet, there's something else. Something that, by all logic, just shouldn't exist. We're talking about an archaeological site that's so ancient, so incredibly advanced for its time, it's like a glitch in the matrix of human history.
And look, this isn't some small little correction to the history books. No way. This discovery forces us to question the very foundation of how societies are born. It's a puzzle that has sent absolute shockwaves through the worlds of archaeology and history.
So to really get why this is such a mind-blowing deal, we first need to kind of rewind and remember the story we all learned in school. You know, that neat, tidy timeline of how humanity went from caves to cities?
And for a really long time, this story was just accepted. It was the fact of the matter. It was a simple, logical cause and effect tale that seemed to perfectly explain our whole journey.
The steps were pretty straightforward, right? First, we were hunter-gatherers, wandering around, following the food. Then, boom, we figure out farming. That's the big game changer. Agriculture lets us settle down, which leads to villages. Those villages grow into cities. And finally, you get complex civilization with art, buildings, and religion.
And it makes perfect sense. Of course it does. You need farming to get a stable food supply so big groups can live together. It was the engine of civilization, or at least that's what we all thought.
And then, back in the 1990s, archaeologists started digging on that quiet hill in Turkey, and they found Göbekli Tepe. And this thing, it didn't just add a new chapter to the story, it basically tore the whole book to shreds. So what did they find? Not a few crude huts. No, they found these colossal, T-shaped limestone pillars. Some of them are 18 feet tall and weigh more than 20 tons. And they're arranged in these perfect circles, all covered in these incredibly detailed carvings of animals. Just stunning.
But here's the part that'll really bake your noodle. Carbon dating showed that this place is over 11,000 years old. I'm going to say that again, 11,000 years.
I mean, to put that into perspective for you, Göbekli Tepe is about 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. It predates the Great Pyramids by about 7,000 years. This place was already ancient when those other ancient wonders were just getting started. It's just staggering.
And this is the paradox, the big problem. The people who built this, they were supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers. They hadn't invented pottery yet, or writing, or even the wheel. They didn't have metal tools to carve these massive stones. And, this is the big one, they supposedly hadn't even developed large-scale farming.
So how? How could a society without any of the things we consider the foundation of civilization create something so enormous, so complex? Who were these people, and what on earth could have motivated them to do this?
Well, this massive puzzle has led to a really radical new idea, one that just flips our whole understanding of history completely upside down.
The lead archaeologist at the site, a guy named Klaus Schmidt, he proposed something revolutionary. He said, what if Göbekli Tepe wasn't a town, but a temple, a huge religious center, and maybe the need to feed the hundreds, maybe thousands of workers who gathered here to build it, maybe that was the thing that actually forced us to invent organized agriculture.
You see how that changes everything? The old story was farming came first, that led to civilization, and then we had enough spare time to develop complex religion. This new theory turns it on its head. It suggests the desire to gather for religion came first, and that forced us to invent farming and settled life to support it.
This quote right here just says it all. The idea that our need to gather, to believe, to make meaning, that this abstract impulse might have been the actual spark that ignited the entire Neolithic revolution, that is a seriously profound thought.
But hold on, because the story of Göbekli Tepe has one last twist. And honestly, it might be the most confusing part of the whole thing. This amazing site wasn't just abandoned and left to rot. Yeah, after being used for over 1,000 years, and think about that, that's longer than the Roman Empire lasted. Its creators did something that archaeologists are still just scratching their heads about.
They buried it. On purpose, I'm not kidding. They painstakingly backfilled the entire complex with millions of cubic feet of dirt, rocks, and animal bones. They entombed their own masterpiece under a man-made hill. And actually, that's the very reason it was so perfectly preserved for us to find.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. Why? I mean, why would any culture spend centuries building this magnificent center, only to then spend a ton of effort to meticulously bury it and just walk away?
We just don't have answers. It's all speculation. Were they trying to protect it, decommissioning it because it had served its purpose? We don't know. The symbols carved into the pillars, they're like a language we can't read. And get this, over 90% of the site is still buried. There's so much more to find.
But here's what we do know for sure. This one single place has totally shattered our old, simple ideas about our Stone Age ancestors. It shows they had complex beliefs, incredible engineering skills, and the social organization to pull off huge projects thousands of years before we ever thought they could.
And that leaves us with one last kind of haunting thought. Göbekli Tepe forces us to ask, are we looking at the world's very first temple, the actual birthplace of civilization, or is it just the first one we've been lucky enough to find? A single clue to a chapter of our history that is way, way older and a whole lot more mysterious than we ever dared to imagine.